Hey folks, after a very long weekend, especially festive days here in India, it's glad to be back again with another event. So this is the last event of Hacktoberfest with Aviyel. Let's welcome Sarthak Shingle and Animesh Pathak on stage. So
Hi,
Animesh and
Nima.
Sarthak, both of them are Init devs and open source enthusiasts who actually work on Keploy, and Animesh is the DevRel over there. So today they're out here to give us insights on what's going on at Keploy. Let's go. I'll hand over the stage to them.
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks for having us today, and thank you, folks, for joining in. I know it's really late in a few of regions, and some joining from a very region where it's very early. So thank you all for being here. So without a delay, let's get started. Let me know if my screen is visible. Is it visible? Awesome. So, folks, today we'll be discussing about what is Keploy and Hacktoberfest in a bit general manner, and then we'll be covering about what Keploy does, what are unit test cases, how you can contribute in a non-code contribution manner, and similarly, what are test cases, what methodologies are there, and much more. So, without a bit delay, let's get and deep dive into it right. So it's a something about unit testing, right? So the whole Keploy framework is dependent upon unit testing. So before we move on, let's get to know about what is unit test cases and why is it important. So we can consider unit testing to be a process where individual units or the components of a software or a piece of code are first isolated and they are tested rigorously. That's why in certain cases it's become very crucial to write high quality unit test cases, because at the end when you are deploying or your software goes in a production, it creates a base for all kinds of automation tests. So we have cucumber.js, Mocha, then N unit test cases, Mojito, and Go mocks. So these are being used for the data mocks and writing the unit test cases frameworks. So here we have Mocha, which is a TDD format, and we have a cucumber.js, which is a BDD format. The basic difference lies when we are writing the unit test case, right? So TDD basically means test-driven cases. We in this format or in this approach, we first define the test cases or think of a situation where our codes might fail or the certain responses that it should provide with us, right? But BDD is totally different. It's a general format that is being used nowadays. It's a more like a behavioral driven development. So while we are building it, the important thing in the TDD, it is completely developer oriented. But in the case of BDD, like frameworks, when we're using Cucumber.js, it's a like product manager, then developers, QA testers, and much more. So the basic difference lies there itself. The behavior is defined of how the things would work, what things we should know, and it's being built up as we go. So these are the two basic approaches which are being widely used, and these are some common frameworks that we are used to. So if we want to generate test cases and do a data mocks, there is usually a pattern, or you can say a combination of a tools that is required. So to solve this, this is where the Keploy comes in, you can say. So Keploy is an end-to-end testing platform that provides developer experience by generating test cases and data mocks simply from API calls. So what happens is when you are making an API calls, let it be with a postman or curl commands or hopscotch and much more. So what Kepler does is it generally records those API calls with header dependencies, whatever body you have sent it, and then on basis of that, it compares with the result afterwards. So it records and replays, and from those you can automatically generate data mocks, because you already have a request and response which are needed to build those from the API calls that you have made earlier. So far, so good. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat. We'll be looking at those. So moving on, the Keploy basically works as a middleware or in an SDK format, right? So you can, by capturing and replaying all the network interactions that are being served to your application from variety of sources. So here you can see like in your application, you might be using Stripe, Twilio, MongoDB, Shopify, AWS pods, GCP platform, and much more. So what happens is, while initially, when you are making an API calls initially, it captures all those dependencies and mocks them. So at when you are replaying those, it is not generally required. You can remove those, and we already have mock credentials with which we will replay the complete test case and get the test results. So that's how a Keploy works. It works in a simple manner of record and replay system. So with me, I have my colleague Sarthak, who will be giving you a quick walkthrough of how you can set up the Keploy on your local machines and try a bit of sample cases. Over to you, Sarthak.
Thank you, Animesh. Hi, folks. I'm Sarthak, and I'm software developer at Keploy. I'll be showing you a quick demo how Keploy makes E2E testing breezy and helps you generate test cases as well as mocks without writing any
Yes,
code.
Sarthak.
So let's start. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Sarthak.
Yeah. I'll be following the Keploy README to initialize my setup. And since we are storing our test results in MongoDB, let's just spin up a Mongo container in our repository. Let's say here. Yeah. So since I'm using macOS, I'll be running Keploy server using Keploy binary. Yeah. Meanwhile, our Keploy server is running. Let's just clone our sample application. Our sample application is basically a Echo Postgres application, which is Echo is a Go router, and we have integrated its middleware with Keploy. And so our Postgres is just required for making some DB calls. So let's just clone it. Since we are using Postgres, let's just create an Postgres instance as well. And yeah, so we have created a Postgres instance. Let's just start our server. Okay. So it is our sample application, and just start it. I will start it by just running export. I think it is open somewhere else. Yeah. I will delete it. Previous test to record some fresh tests, and okay. Let me export as well. Yeah, you can see our sample application, which we have created using Echo as a router and Postgres as a database, is running on 8082 port, and it is basically a simple URL shortener application. We will be recording some few tests. So basically, Keploy requires 3 steps to record test cases. We'll be running Keploy server in background. We need some API to test, and we have to wrap some dependencies, which we have already done, and we have to make some API calls. I'll be using curl to make some API calls. You can use hopscotch and postman as well. So I will copy a post request from here. So I have created a post request. As you can see, a Keploy test is created just now. So I will make another call to get some more coverage. Let's make a get call, or I will have to change the ID because it is random generated ID. Okay. And that's it. We have recorded some few test cases, and as you can see, a test case comprises of some attributes like there are mocks, So it's a test case ID and method is get. So these are different attributes and mocks are bind to specific ID. So whenever we will run our application in test mode, what Keploy will do is it will regenerate those DB queries and all dependencies. So it will create the same environment which was earlier to test our application as best as possible. And these are the mocks generated. Let's just quickly run our application on test mode. So what we have done is we have integrated our Keploy with Go test framework, and it automatically asserts tests and tell us the coverage when we run our API on test mode of Keploy. I have already started my server. Yeah, you can follow the quick start as well. We have generated test cases on Codebase itself, but we will be seeing our test runs here. When we'll be running our application on test mode, just copy that command and we'll be getting coverage as well as it is integrated with Go test. Yeah. So you can see just by making some 2 API calls, we are getting 51% coverage already. Now we'll be seeing it in UI and we are getting a test case as well. Let me zoom in and you can see test result has been recorded. It's a get request of redirect, so there is no response. Let me show you post request response. And so you can easily see timestamp is different, and because of this, Keploy runs a denoise functionality. Keploy is smart enough to detect that timestamp is time sensitive, and it will automatically fail your test cases every time you run your test. So it automatically detects it and marks as noisy. There are other attributes as well, and so we are getting coverage as well, and we have run our test cases. Let me show you what if someone makes some mistake and created something which is not required. Like I will perform a failed test cases to get you more idea on this. Let me, there is a handle func and I will perform a failed test case to showcase you a failed test for Keploy. So let's say someone has added Keploy in front of ID by mistake, and it will be, now we have already recorded test cases for this route, and now I'll be running test case Go test, and we will see some different results. This time there will be a failed test case because yes, you can see now test cases are failed because someone has mistakenly added Keploy. So we can easily detect the failed test case here, and as you can see, the test case has been failed. It is clearly showing you that Keploy is added in front of the ID, and we can now see that how E2 testing has been made breezy by Keploy, and you can also perform the same. So you can also manage these test cases with the help of Git, and you can store somewhere in repository. So you don't have to write any code and do all the hard work which was done earlier by developers. Over to you, Animesh.
Thank you, Sarthak. Thank you for the walkthrough. So moving on to the folks at the highlight of the today's session, how you can contribute to Keploy and what all things are available for you to contribute to the Keploy. So starting with, we have two non-code manners where you can contribute in a simple ways. So the first is a Keploy documentation that is being hosted on a Docker service. It's very easy to set up and does not require much hassle. In fact, none at all. And the second is our Keploy student blog. So you can contribute into these two major non-code manners by just moving on to. Now, regarding the issues, if there is no earlier issues or you want to create your own issues and solve them, so we have categories for that as well. So if you have used Kepler recently or tested it with other non-code platforms and such more, you can write it in your blog post and articles and share it with us, and we'll host it on the Kepler student #, student blog. Similarly, regarding the documentation part, we already have a documentation, so many documentation issues which you can look at. And there is one more thing. We are actively looking for the translations and scripting kind of documentation which are yet to be made by anyone. So what we want or what we are looking for on those issues is basically a translation of our README or a documentation into another format. For example, let it be French, Dutch, German, and much more. So it becomes easy for the folks who are out of the general English speaking region, and they can also understand, use, and contribute in a better format. So that's how the documentation would get more detailed, and it will be helpful for the people who are looking for or turning towards it for a guide. And about the last thing that we are looking for is basically a tutorial kind of format, in which if you get a basic understanding of how Keploy is set up, how you can get to build or take some sample cases, get a bit understanding of in a product review kind of manners, or what all you can do using Kepler. So and you can explain it in a step-by-step manner. So we're looking for these kinds of contribution in a non-code category. So if you have any issues or what should I say, queries, you can definitely check it out once we have all of our documents or issues listed. I'll share the link in a bit with you. So if you are looking towards, or this is first Hacktoberfest, you might have noticed like many of folks are actually contributing towards a documentation form. Documentation format, because it's a primary good first issues for everyone, as it is simple to actually merge, review, and also to contribute. The guidelines are already in our GitHub repo. I'll share the link of our GitHub repo with you soon after a chat, and you can just go ahead and start making your first good issues or first PRs for this Hacktoberfest. So that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoy. Hope you find some good issues over the Keploy repository. Do check it out. It's a very wonderful, and there are much more things coming for you all to actually contribute to, even if this Hacktoberfest is over. And that's all from my side. No. So we are open to all QAs, NAs. So feel free to ask any doubts, or if you are stuck in. So I'll share the GitHub repo link with you. But basically, as I said, there are simpler terms, doc issues, which you can take a look at. Definitely, as I said, we are looking for a translation to another languages and making it more multilingual format other than the English as well. So those are a good place to start your Hacktober journey, as well as the contribution journey to the Kepler. Let me share the link with you.
I think we're coming to the end of the session. So this is the last event of the whole month of Hacktoberfest, and the kind of support that we got from both the projects that were participating, especially Keploy, and also the people who are participating in it, the amount of submissions that came in, we've been overwhelmed by the support and whatever we got in this. And we've been going through everything. The leaderboards will come out, and then the swags and everything will have to start getting shipped and so on. So it has been great. Like, it's a whole month that we actually celebrated open source, because when we actually started thinking about this, there was this one thing that came up in our brains, which was how do we go about getting known for contributions up with the Hacktoberfest concept, because it's mostly code and then devs coming in. It's mostly people who know to code. but there are a lot of people who could actually be involved in technical writing and so on, which never used to happen on a general note, which started happening like all of a sudden, and then the amount of support we got was absolutely overwhelming. Thanks, Animesh. Thanks, Arthur, for joining in. Thanks, all folks, for tuning in for this whole month. And
Thanks, Isaac. I think there is just one last question that's from community. That's what advice would you give to people hoping and build? So, like OSS projects are generally specific to what kind of niche you can find, right? So Keploy is for the in simpler terms we can say it's a no code no code tool for writing test cases, right? So if you're hoping to build, just find your niche and what problems you can solve. In that manner, the OSS projects are actually very much popular for nowadays, and many companies are shifting to it as well. And you will get definitely a much more support if it's open source, as community will also build with you.
those are great insights, Animesh. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot for joining in at this late night hour, especially in India, which I believe you both are based right now. Thank you so much. I think it's time to sign off. Thanks, folks. Good night.
Good night. Thanks for having us. Bye bye.